Check 1 2. Paging the appropriations chairman. Yeah, we're good. All good, yeah. I'm going to do an introduction and then turn it over to him. Good morning. We're going to call the meeting to order. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Going to call the third Water Subcommittee meeting to order today on Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank the City of Claxton and the Veterans Center, especially Tammy Hall. Her team out there have put together a really good breakfast for people that are here. I heard the sausage rolls are really good, and I had 2 of them myself. I want to thank Bill for his hospitality. It's been a great 24 hours here in Claxton, more to come. So I look forward to that. Again, we appreciate your hospitality, and thanks for all the folks that helped put this together. It really means a lot. We spoke briefly about the goals of this committee back in July. I think we can remember those. I'll go over them very briefly, and then we'll kind of get into, we got a guest speaker today, a really good speaker we want to hear from, and then we'll get into the testimony. But some of the questions we wanted to answer as part of this subcommittee were: what and where are the major sources of water in our state? How much of the water sources in our state are being used on a day-to-day, month-to-month, and year-to-year basis? Who is using it, and are we accurately capturing, reporting, and monitoring the data for those who are using it? And we may have adequate water sources today, but how will our state be able to meet the demand over the next 20 to 30 years, given the amount of growth we are seeing in the state, and what sources are able to provide that water? So having said that, the goals for this subcommittee are straightforward. We want to gather the facts, identify any gaps, and determine any policy implications that might help fill those gaps. So just background, let's see here, ground rules for the committee. We'll have testimony from about 5 folks. It'll be about 15 minutes, if you can, for testimony. Leave some time for a question and answer from the committee. We do have a public comment sign-up sheet in the very back. There's 1 person on there now. If you have a public comment, once we get through the witnesses, we'll have public comment. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. We'll have lunch after that here at the here in the Veterans Community Center, and apparently we have a very fine lunch for folks that are also here joining us. So stick around for that. You'll enjoy that. And then we have a site visit for members and staff and speakers today after testimony. So that's kind of the ground rules and the timeline for today. And before I ask the members to introduce themselves, we have someone that needs no introduction, and that is our Speaker of the House, Speaker John Burns. I'm glad he's here today with us, and I'm going to turn the floor over to him for some introductory comments, Mr. Speaker. The floor is all yours. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Thanks, Chairman Cat.
Yes, sir.
Distinguished, beautiful, and handsome members of the committee. How do y'all think y'all got on this committee? I'm not sure. It's a weak moment, I'm sure. But I know all of y'all know. It was reverberating. I thought I was going to be loud enough, yeah. Well, good morning again. Y'all all know what I know.
It's a great day to be a Georgian.
It's a great day to be a Georgian And it's a great day to be in Georgia. It's a great day to be in Evans County. And the hospitality, the fruitcake capital of the world, is always offered to all of us from around the state. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that your former Miss Georgia, Aja Anderson, Dominicone, is from here in Claxton. If y'all, all of our colleagues, if y'all didn't know that, and she is, and we're very proud of her. We have a great relationship. She's a great friend and does great work around the capital as well for many people in Georgia. You know, and I want to tell y'all appreciate you all being here, but certainly distinguished. I was laughing with the director of EPD that he appointed and figured out all the problems we have, and then have Hunter Hill here so he can furnish the money to solve all those problems. So to both of you fine gentlemen, thank you for what y'all both do for our state. And thanks to this group, I know what y'all are doing. You've been meeting. How many times have y'all met, Chaz?
This is our third time, Mr.
Third time to meet, and you're getting closer to down here where you can solve problems for what you just alluded to build and continue what we're doing in Georgia as the #1 state for many reasons, but build a better, brighter future for each and every one of our neighbors. I like to think about it as Georgia's future, and I think that's what I'm about, and I know that's what you guys are about. But to Chairman Blackman, thank you for allowing Chairman Cannon to take this lead in this committee, and all of you, those meetings y'all have been a part of, and what you're not only in the meetings, but outside the meetings. Thank you for the conversations and the solutions that you're helping to develop as y'all work with this subcommittee and as you lead this subcommittee to take what, as you said, a comprehensive look at probably sunshine and water, pretty important resources that we all enjoy, that have been such a critical part of the success of our state over the years. And may add also the well-being of our people. And certainly I'm one of those. We're very blessed in Georgia for many reasons, but we also are very, very blessed, as West Georgia is, North Georgia, South Georgia, East Georgia. We're blessed with an abundance of the vital natural resources that help sustain us as a people, as individuals and the families, and of course the companies who live and operate in our great state. And I think stewardship, and I'll say that word again in a minute, but stewardship of these resources is our sacred duty, not just our duty, I believe is our sacred duty as well. Now, whether you're a business that relies directly on the water for agriculture, for manufacturing, for development, we know that our farmers are vitally dependent on water as they grow the food we eat, the fiber we wear. And you've seen that going on out in the countryside now. There's a lot of cotton being picked now, and certainly peanuts that are being harvested as well. And you know, we all depend on this water as families, the clean water that we take our turn. When we turn on our faucet, I expect that clean water will come out of that faucet. We also enjoy the rivers, the lakes, and the streams all across Georgia. And there's no more important resource on to our quality of life. As we continue to brag about the best place to live, work, and raise a family, and with those resources, have a little fun along the way, what makes us who we are, and what makes this such an inviting place, as we all recognize for people around the country and around the world. That success is due large part to our water availability and the access to those waterways. And we've witnessed historic opportunities for economic growth, investment, and new jobs in every corner of Georgia because of that water availability. I know what y'all know. The House is committed to ensuring that we do what we're called to do, and that goes back to that word I just mentioned earlier. We're going to be stewards of these resources, of this resource, so we can continue that unprecedented economic growth and that standard of quality of life that we've experienced here for our generation and the generations to come. Now, there's a part of it I've mentioned that some of the work we've already done, just to kind of bring a focus on that, is something that we've done over the years in the House as we've taken the lead on many different aspects of this issue. Over the last few years, I'll remind you members, and I know many of you in the audience know this, but the House has led the way in investing over $1 billion in water projects all across this state. Jerry, I know you're very familiar with that as well from the because you've been involved in water resources in your work. Strengthening one of the things, a couple of things that I know are very, very important, the resiliency and the redundancy also of our water supply and how we maintain that water supply, if you will, of our water infrastructure in so many different ways. Now, I'll focus on something that we just did recently, but right here in southeast Georgia. We dealt with an issue that was on the forefront of many people's mind, thanks to Governor Kemp for leading the way on delivering an historic regional surface water project that will ensure a couple of things. It will ensure the success of people, of individuals, of consumers of water, and of businesses in southeast Georgia along the coastal region of Georgia. Will ensure our future, that we have adequate water resources coming from surface water, so we can protect our groundwater resources, and that will provide that sustainability well into the future. Another key word, sustainability. So we know that we are a very blessed people. We have great resources. Thank you to the members of the House that have been willing to support the work of the House when it comes to protecting those water resources. And this regional water resource project that we have in southeast Georgia is certainly one of those critical parts to maintaining what we're doing down here. You know, I think it's easy for me to say, because I know all of you on this panel. I know this is what you're about, and that's about protecting Georgia, working for our future. You do it every day, and I appreciate that. Thank you for spending your time and effort to be out, going across Georgia, and doing what we do best too, is listening as we develop facts that can be impactful on this quality of life issue in our water resources. I very much look forward, Mr. Chairman, to your final report and the recommendations that you will, and this committee will bring to us, action items, if you will, that we can take advantage of when we go back into session, that will do just what we all know our obligation is to protect our future, and certainly on this resource, and be very good stewards of this resource. So thank you all for what y'all are doing. God bless all of you in attendance. God bless Georgia. And thank God for blessing us with this resource of water that we should not take for granted. I know the results coming back here will certainly indicate that. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be here.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for your comments. It's an honor for you to be here, for us to be here with you, and appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Wertheiser for our committee opening prayer, and then he's going to recognize some folks, some local folks in the audience, and then we'll do member introductions and then get going. Chairman Wertheiser.
All right, we're going to pray first, as we do start every meeting that we do, whether we're in a chamber or regardless of where we are in the state. So if you join me in prayer. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we know that every good and every perfect gift comes from you. But you've also given us the responsibility to take care of the resources you've given us, and we thank you for that opportunity, and we pray that you'd give us wisdom as we collect facts and make policy built around these facts. And we pray that you'd give us wisdom that comes from you as we deliberate. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Just wanted to thank a few people. First of all, welcome to my district, which consists of Tattnall, Evans, Jeff Davis, and Appling County. The folks here know this is my favorite county. I want to thank the Speaker for coming. As you can imagine, he's got a lot of stuff going. I've served under 2 governors and 2 speakers, and a little biased, but all 4 men, incredible leaders. But the current Speaker we have is probably the most policy-driven, and he already alluded to it, doesn't come in with a pre-selected agenda. He's always telling us, go get the facts first, get them from every source you can, and then let's develop policy instead of the other way around, which you seem to see a lot of times in the political arena. So thank you for that. Want to thank some folks. Kind of a unique stuff. I've been on a lot of study committees over the years. Don't know if I've ever been one that lunch has been provided not only for the committee members, but everybody who came in attendance, and you're in for a treat. Because a lot of times we just, because of location and busyness, we get a box lunch. Today you're getting fed thanks to Holly Durrance, who leads the Claxton High School Arts and Culinary Club. And so they've got a treat, and as part of that, and part of one of our speakers, Claxton Poultry has donated the chicken. This community owes a ton of debt to Claxton Poultry. I know the local hospital because of the heart program and many other things that they do that go unnoticed. So thank you for that. I want to thank Rosalind Ivy for doing the decorations, for everything that makes it look nice. Two special people, just want to add Adam Kennedy, who's our Industrial Development Authority, and his sidekick, Tammy Hall. You know, it's been said, often if you need something done, go find the busiest person, and for me, that's Tammy Hall. She was texting me at 4:30 this morning with still more things to worry about. But she is, fun fact, we did not have Wi-Fi in this building until Wednesday because this group was coming. So and I think that Wi-Fi is going to stay with us. So thank you for that. But Tammy, thanks for everything you've done, for working to make sure, because this didn't all just happen. Thanks to our House Media Services, who has been one of the greatest. Like most things at the Capitol, they were about 10 years ahead of the Senate. The Senate saw what they were doing, and now they've mimicked it. But thank you for doing everything you do. And it hurts our attendance sometimes because a lot of people know that they can it's live streamed and it's archived, so this meeting is easy to see wherever you are. But thank you for those of you who came and for who support us in what we do. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you.
Don't forget your mayor back there.
Oh. See, if I don't write it down, some of y'all will get my age. The person I'm going to introduce is our mayor, Terry Branch, who hopefully not everybody's watching the live stream because he's my favorite mayor of the group. But Terry is not only incredible mayor, but an incredible individual. And we've seen that recently with him helping take care of his wife and just everything he does. And so, since there's so many politicos in here, I'm going to say one story about him. He recently had an opponent, and they used to eat breakfast together on Saturdays, and during the race, they still ate breakfast on Saturdays and remained close friends during the entire process and never affected their friendship. Wish we could have more political examples like that. So Terry, for being that kind of man, come welcome us and put your phones on silent. Terry, come welcome us to the greatest small town in South Georgia.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill, for hosting us. Mr. Chairman, thank you all for being here. We always appreciate the opportunity to showcase our little town, and you're always welcome. You know, already we have a sweet reputation, but when you ride through town on your way out, you'll know why. You'll smell fruitcake bacon, and it's that season. So thank you for being here. We appreciate the role that each of you play in having such a positive effect on shaping the role of our future here in Georgia. And we just hope everyone has a good visit here today. We want you to be comfortable, and we know it's going to be enjoyable. Thank you all for being in Claxton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your comments. We're going to do member introductions now. I'm going to start at my left here. You're right, with Chairman Shaw Blackman, work our way down to the end, and then we'll get going with Andres Villegas up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be here. Shaw Blackman from Houston County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Hatchett from right up the road in Dublin. Glad to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Speaker Barnes. I'm glad to be here. Teddy Reese from Columbus, Georgia.
Chaz Cannon, District 172, Cook, Thomas, and Colquitt counties.
Bill Werkheiser. I represent Titan Evans, Jeff Davis, and Appling counties.
And Ron Stevens, I represent, I live in Savannah, represent parts of Bryan and Chatham County.
Thank you, Chairman Stevens, for being with us today. We appreciate it. As it was mentioned earlier, but thanks to the House comms team and thanks to Bailey sitting beside me. She's up here pretty quiet, but does a great job. Doesn't say much, but she's been here for last 3 meetings and doing a great job. So thank you, Bailey. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to turn it over to Andres and remember 15 minutes or so for testimony with about 5 or 10 minutes from questioning from the committee. The floor is all yours, Andres.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning, and thank you to everyone here from Claxton for hosting us today as well. Many of you may know me from my 9 years heading up the Georgia Forestry Association, but last year I made the jump over to the private sector and now work for Rayonier. So I've been with Rayonier for about a year now, and wanted to talk to you about something that's critically important to water, which is the state's green infrastructure. As we go through this, you may think that I'm diverting away from the message of water, but 2/3 of all the water that lands on the state comes through a forest. Before it's ever hitting a faucet, before it's ever hitting a well, before it's ever in the aquifer, it's coming from above, going through forest, and eventually reaching all those other sources. Our green infrastructure is what sustains so much of the water that we use every day for residential and for industrial purposes. So for real quick, for those of you who are not familiar with Rayonier, oftentimes we get confused with the mills that are in Fernandina and in Jessup. We sold those mills about 11 years ago or so. The name is confusing because they're called Rayonier Advanced Materials, RYAM for short. But we are just Rayonier, and we own timberland in Georgia. We've got about 31,000 employees, or 31 employees, excuse me, about 660,000 acres of land across 27 counties. That span really the entire southern and middle part of the state in different areas. You can see there that we harvest about 2.5 million tons of timber in the state. So this is equivalent to what roughly one large pulp mill would consume in an entire year. So a lot of employment that's generated from us. We plant about 11 million trees a year in this state as well. So we've been here since the 1940s, and hopefully we'll continue to be here for a long time, because we just announced, well, we've got 3 divisions. I'll apologize for that. One is focused obviously on growing trees. The second one is residential development, which of course we got our large project in Richmond Hill at Heartwood, called Heartwood. And then the third one is kind of the energy and minerals business that touches on those areas. But last week we announced a merger with another major Georgia landowner called PotlatchDeltic. They own land across the United States. So we're based out of Spokane, Washington. And so we're going to double our size as a company, go to a total of about 4.2 million acres across the United States. Very importantly, Georgia will be even more important to us, because we'll be approaching roughly 900,000 acres of timberland that we'll own and manage in the state. And we'll be moving our headquarters from what's currently today Wildlight, Florida, which is just Yulee, Florida, just north of Jacksonville, to Atlanta, Georgia. So our C-suite executives will all be based in Atlanta, and we will be a Georgia-based company now. So we're really excited about that. So you'll probably get to see me a little bit more often. I've been a little bit on hiatus as I've been down in Florida, about a mile from the border, but over the past year or so. The other thing that's important for us too as well is that we'll also have manufacturing assets again as a company. We haven't decided what the new name of the company is going to be, but we will have multiple sawmills, and that'll give us an opportunity to think about our business a little bit differently than we have in the past, and hopefully in the future how we grow too as well. So those are the big news. I'm kind of limited on what I can say about the merger. We're still until it closes, we're limited by the SEC rules about what we can share. But this is what we have shared publicly, and we are once again very excited to be coming to Georgia in a bigger way than we are. As I mentioned, our current CEO for Rayonier will be the new CEO of the company. The CEO of PotlatchDeltic will be the chairman of the company, and we're calling it a merger of equals. We're both bringing about the same amount of assets to the merger too as well, which is part of the reason why we chose Atlanta. We knew our headquarters didn't necessarily need to be in Spokane or in Wildlight, Florida, where we're at. So we wanted a nice neutral site, and Atlanta was a good spot for that because of its proximity. And of course, it's in the center of the most productive wood basket in the world, and that's very important to us as a company. All right, so oftentimes when we're talking about alternative uses of our land, like what we're doing at Richmond Hill with the Heartwood development, or we talk about solar, or we talk about other things, it gets lost on folks that are you becoming some type of new company? Well, today, even if we maximize our solar potential and our residential potential, we'll still have about 96% of our land growing trees. And so that's really important for us because it means that for forest markets, we have to make sure that we know how to make money growing trees. It's really important, obviously, for the water resources of the state of Georgia and other places where we have assets. So even though we might have really bright and shiny objects out there like real estate and solar and other energy things that are there, it really is the timber that is the core of our company and our major core concern. But increasingly, it's getting harder to make money growing trees, and this is a threat to the water resources of the state. And why do I show that? If you look at our 2003 revenue, even though we have a very, very small sliver of our land dedicated to these alternative revenue sources, it generates about 30% of our total revenue as a company. And so our ability to convert land in places that are close to the interstate, close to cities, to other uses, converting it to temporarily for mineral extraction or for energy uses is really important to us. Now, why is that important to Rainier and other folks? Because it's also important to your average landowner. And so once again, when we have that green infrastructure and we have our land and trees, we are doing great things for the water resources of the state. I say that to say that these are becoming increasingly important for us. So when we think about water and we think about forestry in the state of Georgia, we should think about it holistically and not limit the options that landowners have, their private property rights, to be able to do what they need to do to be able to hold onto their land, generate the revenue that is required to pay taxes, and be able to manage their assets. So how does this look a little bit? We share this with our investors, so this is publicly available information. But here you can see at the very bottom, let's see, I think this is a pointer. No. Well, at the very bottom of this table here, this graph, you can see the profits generated from, or the revenue generated from timber. It's relatively minimal, and what's important for that's why we have scale. That's why it's a lot easier to generate revenue when you have a significant amount of acres and be able to have that as your primary source. And as you start moving up, you start seeing opportunities to do some kind of rural, higher and better use land, which would be larger tracts sold for maybe for recreation, for hunting, 200-acre, 300-acre tracts for folks who want to have their piece of paradise to hunt on. We talk about carbon capture and storage leases being another way to really elevate. And we talk about solar and also unimproved development as being areas where we really start to accelerate the value of an acre. We can't do these things on every acre that we have, and no timber landowner can in the state. But in places where it makes sense, it becomes critically available, critically important for us in terms of revenue. And then, of course, improved development, which you would see along maybe the I-95 corridor in Representative Stevens' district. So I'll say all this to say that as we evolve as a company, we're providing leadership. And this is one of the areas where small and large landowners play well together in the sandbox. There's things that large landowners do that small landowners can't. And there's things that small landowners do that large landowners can't. And so along those lines, we're constantly investing in our business development functions and our ability to think about, well, what is the evolution of these assets over time? And a lot of it continues to be in these smaller spaces, but water seems to be an area that we're growing into. We've seen in other states that we operate in, particularly in Florida, that local municipalities are approaching us about water recharge, water retention, and will actually pay for some of those services. There are a lot of discussion and some academic research about planting actually fewer trees and growing still timber, but also growing water. Being able to redirect water from land that was ditched 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago to be able to grow trees on, and now being able to adjust that ditching and that kind of natural irrigation to be able to retain more water on land for recharge and for even for aquifer use, aquifer recharge, and also for retention for local communities. So all of these are important for us as, once again, we think about what it takes to maintain, whether it's 100 acres or whether it's 600,000 acres. The economics and the opportunities are all just as important for large and for small landowners. So why do I talk about that in these terms? Well, one of the most important ways we can keep forests healthy is to have healthy markets. And that's, once again, going to feed back to the water goals of this state. So I wanted to share a couple of different ideas about how we can do that. And I think one of the most near-term opportunities that may be pressing here for us as a state that needs more energy is the opportunity to look at biomass power production. And in states where we've seen biomass power take off, we've seen that oftentimes it's incentivized by those states through production tax credits or other types of investment tax credits. We tend to lean towards production tax credits. Why? Well, because it creates a pull-through value that reaches all the way back to the landowner, to the loggers, to the haulers. So a whole supply chain that supports local economies in an important way. And I know as many of you on policymaking side, you care about jobs in your communities. And this is a way to do that. You're not incentivizing the investment necessarily, you're incentivizing the production. So uptime, purchasing, operations, jobs, maintenance, all those things are incentivized by production tax credits. And so this is a way where essentially for every ton of biomass delivered into a facility, you're creating that opportunity for a tax credit that feeds back into the economy. One of the most important components of this, of course, is all the raw material that comes off the land for that then is replaced with new trees that are that are planted. So like I said before, we plant 11 million trees a year. You got to have somewhere to plant them, and that space is created when we're harvesting timber for these different resources. And another area that's new for some of you that you may have that people are starting to ask us about is what's called carbon capture and storage. This was something that was started in President Bush's administration. You may remember him talking a lot about clean coal and investing heavily in that. It was further kept during the subsequent Democratic administrations. And then during the first and second Trump administration, they were actually juiced up considerably. And here in the last One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the reconciliation bill that was passed, it was considerably increased. And so there's a lot of support for this across the country and all from our federal government, even in a space where they were contracting these a lot of renewables. There was a lot of support to increase this process. Why is this important? Well, today, if you were to build a biomass power facility, your one source of revenue is selling power to the major utility, Georgia Power or EMC or whoever that might be. Well, what this adds is two more sources of revenue, essentially. One that comes from the federal government in the form of a tax credit, and the second that is comes from the marketplace of people who are buying carbon removal credits. And so that would be like the Microsofts of the world or the Googles of the world that are in this space. That's voluntary. That's what one buyer, one seller, willing buyer, willing seller. So the government's not necessarily involved in that last component. They're involved in the middle component. But what we're doing is we're wrapping around the ability of a biomass power facility to be able to pencil out their projects. Today, that's very difficult to do because you only have, there's no incentives on the front end for buying biomass, and there's only one revenue stream on the back end, and that's selling power. This diversifies it, makes it pencil out a little bit more, and once again, gives us a near-term opportunity to allow landowners to continue harvesting, managing, and replanting trees around the state, which ultimately leads to healthy, what we call ecosystem services, which includes air, water, and wildlife. So that's a little bit of what this looks like in terms of a single picture there. And why is this important? Because there today, in terms of what the legislature can do, well, there's two things that are highlighted are things that don't exist. We don't have a production tax credit for biomass, and also we don't have a regulatory framework for carbon capture and storage. Across the country, we've seen, well, I'll get to that here in a minute. And that's because the reason we don't is because for carbon capture and storage is because we've never had an oil and gas industry in the state. If you go to Alabama, you go to Louisiana, you go to Texas, you go to other states where they have oil and gas extraction, those rules and regulations have been created because they've had to. We don't have that necessarily in Georgia, so it's an important opportunity. Now, why do I talk about this again? Once again, markets. This helps landowners, it helps our power plants, including biomass, and most importantly, it helps our pulp and paper sector as well. Once again, just like it gives, after coal, the most rich carbon emission that comes from a smokestack is from pulp and paper sector, the pulp and paper manufacturers. So once again, it's a way to generate more revenue for our existing pulp and paper assets in the state. And Georgia's obviously, we took a huge hit this year with 3 of those shutting down. This is a way to bring them, to give them a lifeline, if you will, that's already built. The federal government already created this. We just need to create some regulation around it to give them the opportunity to play that game, and hopefully they'll take their step on the private side too as well. And then one of the things that's really important for us, we can still hunt on this land. We can still log on this land. We can still grow trees on this land, which once again, all those things help us with those ecosystem services that we talk about. One of the things that comes up oftentimes when we're talking about carbon capture and storage, or CCS for short, is water resources. You're drilling down into the earth. People get concerned about contaminating water resources, and that's really not something that we have to be concerned about, because there's a lot of safeguards. Number one, highly regulated by EPA, highly regulated by states, but this stuff is going down over a mile underneath the ground. Most of our water resources are going to be right here. This section right here, less than 1,000 feet in terms of drinking water. These wells go down over 7,000 feet, sometimes over 10,000 feet below ground. So well out of the way of where we have drinking water concerns. So another opportunity that we say, and why it's been supported by folks on both sides of the aisle and from all different types of environmental perspectives over time in Europe and in other parts of this country too as well. And why do we talk about this in Georgia in particular? Because if you look at the southeast, outside of Florida, Georgia actually has the greatest potential of any state on the Atlantic seaboard. And in many ways, even though Florida has more geological capacity than we do, in Georgia, we're actually closer to the sources of emission. So think of your pulp and paper mills, and think about your power plants, the coal-fired and natural gas power plants. We have a lot of those in Georgia, and they're in close proximity to the places where you can actually put this stuff, like I said, 7,000 to 10,000 feet underground. And so why are we talking about this? Once again, because healthy markets help the ecosystem services that we need in the state, that provide the water that we need in the state. And a lot of other states are getting on board with this. And so this is actually passed legislation. Alabama, California, Colorado, North Dakota, Wyoming, Indiana, North Dakota again, West Virginia, Louisiana, and Wyoming again. So a lot of states getting on board with this, looking at the potential to create the necessary regulatory frameworks to do this. Obviously, Texas and Louisiana are already neck deep in all this stuff too as well, and there's a lot of movement in the space. So if there's a call to action, if there's an opportunity that we can put in front of you, this is one of those that we think that can work. With that, that's a little bit of, these next 2 slides just talk about what all that means. But once again, we believe that this state prospers when its forest prospers. And we know that we've been paid for timber for a long time, and we get revenue from hunting leases and palmetto berries and pine straw and things like that. We don't get paid for the clean air we provide. We don't get paid for the clean water we provide. We don't necessarily get paid for all the other things that happen that are good, habitat for endangered species and other things like that that are important to us. And we want to continue to provide all those things. And when you're helping markets thrive, you're helping forest markets thrive, you're helping forests thrive, which then leads to ample water resources for this state. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andres. Any questions from the committee? Chairman Stevens.
Andres, people don't give you credit sometimes unless you do it in public, so I'm going to take the opportunity to do that. Rayonier was a champion on the I-95 interchange. They came up, they donated the land for the interchange, they partnered with the city of Richmond Hill for infrastructure to come out with money, and the planning process was pretty amazing. But on a different note, as we move from the 8th most populated state to the 5th most populated state, every one of these pulp and paper facilities that come offline is a loss of power generation. So putting Rayonier in the forefront with the explosion of these internet companies. We're going to need more and more power, I guess, is my plan. So just wanted to say thank you, number one, and keep generating.
Yes, sir. Yeah, our pleasure.
Chairman Blackman.
Calm me down if I get out of relevancy here a little bit, but if I could segue just a little bit, Andreas, we've talked about this, and I mean, I think it's an important issue. We've had a number of hearings during session regarding, you know, the forestry industry and, you know, landowners. Can you remind me where we stack up, say, for instance, against Alabama on, you know, our property taxes and what we look like per acreage?
Yeah, Georgia for timberland owners has the highest property taxes of any state in the southeastern United States. So that is one of the most pressing components for landowners, and more importantly for investors. If you're looking at the carrying cost of owning 1,000 acres or 100 acres over 30 years rotation of what it takes to grow timber, or 25 years rotation, other states just look a lot more attractive. And for, you know, that's one thing if you're an individual, but if you're a large investor that has to steward money for your shareholders, it's hard to make the argument sometimes that you want to go to a high-cost area. What's saved us so far as a state is that we've had great markets. You know, all these pulp and paper mills, all the sawmills, that's starting to turn. And so, and we've seen more investment in other states, Alabama, Arkansas. I mean, Weyerhaeuser just announced last year earlier this year, a $500 million advanced technology wood products facility in Arkansas. So other states are attractive for multiple different reasons. We're attractive in our own right too as well, but we do have a high tax environment. Yes, sir.
Would you have enough confidence in sharing with us maybe what the numbers were? I could guess myself what I remember, but I think you probably know better than.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll have to channel my inner Richard Royal for this one, but yeah, for example, on average in Florida, it's like $1.50 roughly. In Georgia, if you're in Cuva and Flippa, you're in that $7 to $10 range, and if you're out of it, you're $14 up to $50 an acre range. I mean, you're comparing. If you're out of Flippa and Cuva, you could be paying up to $50. In some cases, even more. I know several landowners around Augusta were complaining about paying $80, $75 an acre. And you can go across the border, across the river into South Carolina, and you're in that $3 an acre range. It's if you want to hold land for a long time, it can get very expensive comparatively.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Andres.
Yes,
appreciate your testimony today, especially in today's markets for pulp and paper industry. Thanks. Timely comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Mr. Stephen Freeze, who's the Special Project Manager for Claxton Poultry. So as he makes his way to the podium.
Try to get my stuff together real quick.
Mr. Stephen, floor is all yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to try to give y'all a mile-high view of what we do and how water works into our operation, as poultry is one of the largest industries in the state of Georgia. So quite a few of our problems are the same as the other plants, but there's also quite a good bit of difference that comes because of our geographical location and what we have. So Claxton Poultry Farm, it's a fully integrated, family-owned and operated company. Right now, it's being run by the third generation. We've been in business for 66 years, since 1959. It was actually started by my grandfather. And we have members of the fourth generation that are working in the company already as well, preparing. So it's a very, very tightly held thing, and with that comes a lot of responsibility for the area and the neighborhoods. I mean, I was just talking to one of my live guys, and we have 264 different families that have farms that have 950 houses, pretty much in Appleton County, Tattnall County, Evans County, and then a couple of them in Bullitt County. So it's up and down that 301, 121, 144 corridor. So our footprint expands over a lot. Being fully integrated, in Surrency, Georgia, we have our own feed mill, grain elevator. In Tattnall County, we have 2 hatcheries, so we hatch our own birds. We have the slaughter production facility in Claxton that we slaughter 2,350,000 chickens a week at. And we have about 1,800 people that just work in our Claxton plant. We also have a probably 6-year-old further processing plant that's in Sylvania, Georgia. So there's a lot of people that are tied in with a lot of what we do. And that's a big responsibility for us and us as a family because it's such a tight-knit community. And it does allow a lot of people, like you was talking about taxes on forestry land. There's a lot of people that had family land that they may not have been able to keep if they hadn't been able to build poultry houses on them to subsidize their income. So it's far-reaching with what we do. With that is a big responsibility. So, oh, I gotta put my glasses on, sorry. I knew that part. Water plays an important role in what we do. We have to wash the plant every day. People don't realize that when we run, you have to go into a chicken plant every day and completely hand wash every bit of it and sanitize it before you can start it the next day. It's got to be microbiologically tested, all that kind of stuff before they'll allow you to start the next day. So that is a big part of it. We also use it to spray water on the birds and to keep equipment clean and moving and stuff like that as we go along. And I'm forgetting to do this thing. Wrong. All right, sorry guys. We could serve our water in the plant each day by, a lot of it is just communication. We read meters on wells and at specific places in the plant 3 times a day. At the beginning of first shift, end of first shift, the beginning and the end of second shift. So we can go in there and say we know that each different shift uses this much water based on what they produced, so we can keep track, make sure we're staying the same, nothing gets out of whack, and identify areas that are problems. We have single large valves on each one of our water lines coming in the plant, so when the plant goes to lunch, I mean, even though there's 500 water valves in there, you can go close 3 big valves and it shuts all the water off to the plant. So we just found those are the ways to get those things done. Currently, we use about 5.26 gallons per bird for processing. The industry average in the state of Georgia is about 7 gallons per bird. So we achieve that in many ways with some water savings and conservation and meetings and stuff like that that we try to do on a regular basis. We have a yield team. Every day, somebody sits down and compares what you did with every bit of water in every different place, and a report goes out every morning to everybody. So really, we stay on top of it because, I mean, there's a cost to water. People don't think that. I mean, there's a cost to get the water out the ground. There's a cost to treat it. There's a cost to every bit of it. I don't know that y'all can really read this, but this is basically a flow chart, how the water is used. You have your water that comes into the plant. You receive your birds and you kill it. That uses about 0.5 of a gallon per bird. Then you bleed the birds, we capture all the blood, keep it out in the water system. Then you have your scalding, your defeathering, your bird washing, your eviscerating, which is your opening and removing of the viscera. Some final bird washes, chill it, cut up the debone for the packet, and then you have sanitation and other sanitary issues that are done in a plant. So there really is a lot that goes into it, and water is in every single part of it. This is an example of a scalder in the plant. So the scalder, when the birds come in, it goes through there, it's about 120 degrees for a certain amount of time, and that's what helps to release the feathers so that the birds can be picked by the machines. Now, it's also heated. Where do you get the heat? We have to run 2 boilers. Boilers use the water just the same. So, I mean, everything you do ties back into it to generate that energy. This is an example of a wash cabinet. So after the birds are being processed, you have to rinse them and keep them clean and in a sanitary manner all the way through the process. Now, one of the things that we've gotten into over the last 10 years are these water reuse systems. So in the pre-chill part of the plant, you're allowed to take water and reuse it as long as you go from the cleaner areas back to the dirtier. So like a final rinse before you go into the chilling system, that water's clean enough that you could take it back and use it in that scalder where you're defeathering. So that's been one of the big things that we've done to keep the number of, the usage of the water down as we continue to grow. Another big advancement was, I guess, probably 10 or 15 years ago, saw the advent of these red water chillers. So all of our refrigeration is done by ammonia refrigeration to cool it. So now these giant chillers that probably hold, we have 2 of them, together they probably hold about 200,000 gallons of water, and we chill it, and it is constantly pumped out and through a heat exchanger that cools that water back down to about 32 degrees and then just keeps it constantly recirculating all day. You have to put some makeup water in there to keep it going. But before that, we had a water bath and you dumped ice in it all day long. Single-use ice, once it melts, it overflowed and it was gone. So that's made a huge difference, and that's the advent of technology with, I think most poultry plants are doing that now. We used to run 8 ice machines and have a 200-foot-long ice house, and now I have one in a 15 by 15, which we only use for final packing on certain products that people want. So that's been a big deal. This is just another picture of the chillers. Like I said, the birds will go in there and it's got an auger that keeps them moving as it goes through it. It'll take about 2 hours for that bird to go through there. When a bird comes in, it's 105 degrees and you have to get it to 40 degrees or below prior to being able to start cutting it up and process it. So that's what you're doing here. It's just the dwell time. I spoke about cooling. So the whole plant has to stay cool. You can't chill the birds down and keep it hot. So everything in the plant stays below 50 degrees, the general air. So we have a bunch of refrigeration, and these condensing towers are part of the ammonia refrigeration. They actually use 20% of the total water that we use in a day is used just to refrigerate product. I say that because we talked about sanitation, where they clean the plant. Another 25% of our water is used in this process. So 45% of the water that we use in a day is basically in support roles. It's not actually in the processing of the plant. It's in the things that you have to do to have a good, safe, wholesome product that you can sell to our customers. So all the blood is captured in giant steel tanks. We put it in a tanker and we sell it to Darling Industries, and they use it, they cook it down and put it in different kinds of meals and stuff like that. So it's so important to us to do that because it is the primary constituent that adds the nitrogen in our wastewater. And nitrogen is our land limiting constituent at our LAS, which I'll get to in a minute. So we want to keep the blood out of the water, because once the blood gets in the water, it's really hard to get it stripped back out. So all the blood is pumped out every day, multiple times, and sent off site. The wastewater from the processing plant flows to the primary screening in 2 open channel troughs. And I've got a picture of this, but it's coming. One of the effluent streams carries the offal, the guts, feet, heads, all that stuff, and the other one has the feathers. They go down, they go through a set of screening, and the screening results are sold, and a lot of people use that. We sell them to Darling Industries, and they'll use them to make poultry protein and dog food, or I think a lot of times now they export a lot of it. So here's an example of the water coming out of the plant going through 2 screens and then being loaded out into the top of the trucks to go to Darling. I keep wanting to call them Griffin Industries because it was forever, and I just can't not do that. But so the effluent then passes through these 0.2 micron screens that you can see right here. So the water falls out and it goes on to this screen, which is a final 0.1 micron screen that spins, separating out even finer particulate matter that we put all back on the truck and keep it out the water. It goes into a basically an equalization basin after that we pump out of, and we pump it into our 2 DAF units that we have. They could treat about 2,000 gallons per minute. We use a 3-polymer system, and it's called a GRAS system. So the chemicals that are used in the wastewater process are generally recognized as safe for food. So there's nothing fancy in there. Most of everything we have has no bad byproducts. You don't have any VOCs, you don't have any metals, you don't have any of the forever chemicals that everybody's worried about. We don't have any of that as a byproduct or used anywhere in our processes. So that makes it a little bit easy because everything's organic. So this is a picture of the 2 DAFs. You know, they're probably 100 feet long. I don't know. Most people, I don't know if I explained it or not in here, but I'll tell you. So dissolved air flotation means that as the water comes in, you supercharge the water with oxygen, dissolved oxygen. And as that dissolved oxygen releases, it binds with the flocculent molecules from the wastewater, and it floats it to the top. And then you have skimmers that skim it off. And anything that's too heavy will actually fall down to the bottom and go out of a bottom sediment auger. So then at the end of it, the wastewater goes over a weir, and it's pretty much finished at that point in time. We do have to go in there and monitor it and maybe add a little bit of lime or something like that to keep the pH right going to the spray field. So there's a little bit more to it, but they work really good, as you can see. I mean, you see a 96% reduction in the suspended solids, 60% reduction in the COD, and probably 75% reduction in nitrates. All right, so after that, we enter our wastewater lagoons. We have 3 wastewater lagoons. I will say one thing that's interesting in the design of the one at the plant, the first one, is it's all gravity fed. So I think I missed earlier, we have 4 fluoride and aquifer wells, which is where we get our water from. I forgot to say that earlier, and it's treated. We have a groundwater use permit, we have a permit to operate a public drinking water system, and then we have our wastewater permit. So there's a lot that goes in it, but everything is gravity fed. So if there's ever the case of a failure, a power failure or something like that, as the water gravity flows and it doesn't come up, everything just automatically goes to the lagoons. It can never get lost, it can never go away, which has always been a good thing. It's just kind of a CYA thing. I mean, I don't think we designed it like that, but it works really good like that. So that first aerated basin at the bottom of the hill that you can actually see from 301 when you drive by, that one will hold 4 million gallons of water. So we have 4 million, 12 million, and 4 million. So we have 20 million gallons worth of ponds. We could actually shut down any kind of wastewater operations for over a week if we had to, based upon weather or what was going on or hurricanes or anything like that. But usually, I mean, with the hurricane, that last one, I mean, if you're not running, you're not making wastewater. So it didn't really matter in that case. We use mechanical aerators to introduce oxygen into the lagoons. That helps to keep them mixed, but it also allows the beneficial bacteria to thrive and break down organic pollutants and stabilize the wastewater in the lagoons. So yes, we get storage out of it, but we also get water treatment. I mean, the process continues to clean up the wastewater as it goes through the storage ponds. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. This is a picture of that first lagoon. It goes from there to our second lagoon, which is on site at the plant. It holds the 12 million gallons, and it leaves there and goes through a 75 horsepower Gold's pumps and goes through the pipeline to Riverside, which is the LAS, and that's 6 miles away. It's a 12-inch force main, and we pump it 6 miles. This is an example of your free oxygen that we're trying to put in the water. We built a cascade, put rocks in it. I mean, same thing as a waterfall. Takes no power, it's going there anyway, but you can introduce oxygen to the process. In 2014, we went in at the halfway point of the line and built this booster pump. station. It's on Church Street. It's pretty cool inside of it because it's controlled by mission control systems, and they will, I mean, you can turn it off, you can turn it on, you can choose a lead, a follow, how long it's run. It'll tell you what the pressures are. It'll tell you if something goes right, if something goes wrong. I mean, everything is cellularly controlled. So, I mean, if there's ever a problem, you don't have to just stumble across it later on. There's always things that'll instantly tell you. It also has a key system, like an old key lockbox, where people that work for us have to go by and key into it once a day, every day, so that you know somebody's checking it. All right, so Riverside Farms is our land application site. It's located on 169. We originally constructed it in 2000, so we've run it for about 25 years now. Originally, it was 628 acres. We added 25% more land in 2014, and the wastewater there's a 4 million gallon lagoon there. Again, it's an equalization basin, and then we pump out through vertical turbine pumps. We have 12 Valley Model 8000 center pivots, and then we have some fixed 75 acres of solid set sprinklers, and the pivots again have all cellular controls on them. So I mean, if a pivot gets stuck or a pivot gets broken or anything happens like that, or there's a pressure drop because, God forbid, a boot blows or something like that on it, it will call out and let you know. Now we staff 5 people full time on this farm when it's running. This is one of the original design overhead views just to kind of show you the layout of the farm. So this would be your pond right there in the center, and then you can see where the pivots are laid out. It's designed and permitted as a no discharge system. It means that all of the water that we pump must infiltrate the ground. There can be no runoff or anything like that, period. It's not acceptable. So that's part of this. The aerated lagoon effluent pumped to that site to be sprayed on select cover crop at a slow rate. It's referred to as slow rate land application of treatment. It results in the reduction of everything bad that's in the water is taken up in the living layers of the ground. That being said, we have to also maintain a very well growing and actively growing crop at all times out there. The treatment of wastewater by land application is regulated by the state of Georgia. We have a permit with the Georgia EPD. These are some other pictures that I took of it. Like that's the 4 million gallon lagoon with your mechanical aerators running, your pumping stations. This just gives you an idea of what the spray fields look like with the center pivots running. There's an overhead view of it. So I spoke about the blood earlier. Your nitrogen uptake is the land limiting constituent. I mean, we can't let the nitrogen get into the groundwater. So we have to grow enough and remove it that we take all the nitrogen that's coming in the water off of the spray fields. Originally, we just permitted it for dual crop Bermuda grass and a winter annual grass forage, but we changed it over to alternative crops. In 2009, EPD gave us a variation because it was just too many acres of hay to cut. I mean, you couldn't do it. You couldn't go across 780 acres every 4 to 5 weeks while you were pumping and dealing with the weather. I mean, it couldn't be done. So now we have lots of things like grain sorghum or stuff like that we grew grain sorghum this past year, and we sell it all to a dairy farmer in Reedsville. So one time we did corn, and we sold all that back to ourselves to feed the chickens. So it was all in the circle of life. This just shows you some of the different crops that are approved by the state for us to use. None of them can be sold for any kind of human consumption. All got to be livestock or animal consumption. Gives you a couple more pictures. Okay, so under our permit, we have to do a good bit of monitoring. These are our general permit parameters that we have to do. A flow cannot be more than 2 million gallons a day on a quarterly average, 860 pounds per acre per quarter of solids. Your nitrate and nitrites are the TMDLs. Your BOD5, you can see 860. We monitor for oil and grease, ammonia, TKN, phosphorus, and your average total nitrogen can't be any more than 193 pounds per acre. There are also 11 groundwater monitoring wells that are monitored every month, and the results submitted to EPD, looking at your nitrate, nitrite, nitrogen, your phosphorus, pH, groundwater, COD, chlorides, and dissolved solids. Surface water monitoring, originally, one of the things that I liked in our last permit, originally we only monitored the surface water in like 2 places every quarter. Well, now we monitor it in 6 different places. So we monitor it where it comes into the piece of property and where it leaves the piece of property, so that you can see if there's any cumulative effect on the groundwater on the surface water sites as they go and pass through the land application site. So I mean, that's a pretty good bar to tell you if you're doing a good job or a bad job. We monitor the soil annually to check on the cation exchange capacity and stuff like that. The hydraulic loading, the design loading for the site said it would take 2.5 inches per week, and right now our current loading is about 0.63. So we pump about 25% of what the land can take. All right, so real quick in conclusion, our watering system is imperative to our process. I mean, it's used in every bit of it all the way through. Without the water, we couldn't slaughter, process, and deliver a safe, wholesome product to our customers. And we all need food. Everybody likes chicken, I hope. Water is a critical resource. We must always continue to develop ways to conserve it and reuse the water. And one thing that's nice is that the way that our system works, when we pull it out the ground, is we basically return it back to the ground too. So it completes the hydrologic cycle throughout it. It's not discharged straight back into the river. I mean, it perks back to the ground and goes into the shallow water aquifers. So there's a lot of benefits for it. Personally, I like it. Do y'all have any questions?
That's a pretty impressive presentation. So that's Georgia Tech grad to run that place, I guess, huh? Sounds like. Chairman Werkheiser.
Hey, Mr. Freeze, the reason I wanted you included in this presentation, because this committee, the reason we're here is because of the plant that we're going to go see. There's concern about the amount of water they're using and what that'll do surrounding farmland. And as we just saw, a lot of people will be surprised that, I mean, y'all been here for 60 years using an incredible amount of water, and nobody's having any well issues. No farm. I mean, we're in one of the toughest drought periods right now that we've been in a long time, and everybody's wells are fine, right?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any problems.
And so that was one of the purposes of this committee, because y'all actually are using 1/3 as much water as the Hyundai plant on a daily basis.
I don't know what they use.
Yeah, you're at 2 million, they're at 6.
Yeah.
And so, again, no problems. And so that was, kind of knew the answer that nobody's having problems, but didn't know it was as scientific. And I mean, that's impressive. As Chairman Cannon said, that's what you're doing is very impressive.
Well, I will say, I mean, one thing that I probably should have said in there is that same amount of water we've used for a long time. But over the last 20 years, 20 years ago when my grandfather died, we killed 100,000 chickens a day. And now we kill almost 500,000 chickens a day, but we do it with the same water.
Wow.
So that's where your technology and everything gets in there. I mean, well, back then, 20 years ago, nobody thought about water as being a limited, resource. I mean, nobody, it's just It was just like chicken wings. Nobody cared if you broke the wings on the chicken when you caught them. Well, now it's the most expensive part of the chicken there is. So, I mean, it just changes over time. Nobody thought about those kind of things back in the old days, but it does. I mean, and even now we're looking at changing some stuff like that. And one of the primary conversations is, what are we going to do to keep the water usage at the same level if we want to kill more chickens? And there are some fairly fancy water reuse systems out there, but to do it, you've got to plan it when you do it from the start so that you have the real estate to put it on and everything like that. I mean, it's awfully hard to go back into an old facility like this and revamp it or drop a reuse site in the center of it. Because, I mean, our plan is the hodgepodge. This built, 10 years later, this was built, this was built. I mean, it's one of those kind of things. And so with the new designs that we've got coming now for some of them to straighten it out, there's a lot of thought and effort that's going to go into water reuse systems in the future.
Additional Chairman, questions from the committee? Chairman Hatchett.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to thank you for taking the time and coming out and educating us on the complexities after you've, used the product that you're actually selling, because is so important. And I do want to ask, if you can tell us, you may not be able to tell us, what % of your sales go to grocery stores or markets where we can actually buy your product versus like a Chick-fil-A or KFC or something like that?
Very little. I mean, you may find some whole birds or some leg quarters at a grocery store somewhere, or you may find some people that are local, like at the Food Fresh down here. Chris will buy the bulk product and then he'll tray pack it for us. But when we started having labor problems years ago, that was just some of the things that had to go. I mean, like a tray packing area that was what you used to get in the grocery store all the time. It take 63 people to pack 100,000 pounds in a day. Well, I mean, I can put them on a fast food machine and cut them up into KFC, and I can use 8 people and cut up 400,000 pounds a day. So you basically had to streamline and go where the markets went. And we do a lot of fast food service is most of what our niche is.
Can you say any of those that we should make sure we go buy their chicken?
Chick-fil-A's, your KFC's, your Zaxby's, your Popeyes. I mean, most of them.
Love that chicken.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. We actually were one of the first major suppliers of Chick-fil-A. Yeah, we supply all the chicken to Disney World.
Other questions from the committee? What's your experience been with the compliance and the permitting and monitoring? Is that fairly good process that you guys go through? And tell us about that a little bit if you can.
It is good. I mean, this permit that we're waiting on a renewal right now has been a little slow with just some personnel things, but it's been pretty good. I mean, I hate to say it because it's like this with anybody, but it kind of depends on who your compliance officer is. Some of them are Johnny on the spot, and they're right there and they work with you, and they're not there just to gotcha or to get you. They're there to make a good thing better, and some of them are helpful, some of them aren't. But I mean, I think that's just life.
But you're fairly certain that from a metering perspective, you're tracking what you're taking out and what you're putting
Okay, so
back in.
yes, so we meter everything, and like I said, with we read those 3 times a day and meet about them. But also, what we did years ago was we went in and put these Badger mag meters on a lot of the lines, big 10-inch meters, and they remotely read all the data. And you can go into their beacon system and look at it, and it'll show you your water usage through there by the hour, by the day, by the shift, trends. I mean, and you can see what did this well do 8 months ago on a Tuesday. So yes, I mean, all of them automatically record as well. And it gives you a lot of data. I mean, I would definitely say that's a great way to do it.
Is your water sourced by municipality or is it?
Groundwater wells. We have 4 deep wells. We run 3 of them all the time, and we have one that's a backup.
Gotcha. Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. Thank you, sir, for the presentation. That was very educational. I was myself happy to see the reusage of the water and how you're getting multiple usage out of it and putting it back into the environment. That was pretty cool. I serve on the Agriculture Committee, so I want to ask you a question from that perspective. I know earlier this year we had a few scares in the state with avian flu on some of our locations. Did that impact you in any way? Not You know, did you have to change procedure, or did you guys have to do anything special?
We pretty much already had a very secure and stringent biosecurity program in place that we keep it active year-round. And so it didn't as much for us. Now, we also get the benefit that we're a little bit isolated. We're away from most of the other chicken plants. We're not really in the big migration corridors. We don't use a lot of surface waters and stuff like that. Some places use the surface water to water their houses, and that's one of the ways. I mean, so pretty much if you do what you're supposed to do, the only way to get the AI inside the house is that somebody carries it in on their feet. You know, somebody's getting into it, they go in town and they go to the Circle K and they do this, and somebody else goes and gets it, and then they go and they don't do what they're supposed to do, and they go inside their houses. Or they go to Arkansas and go duck hunting when they're not supposed to. So we take it, it's a very serious thing, just because, I mean, the economic impacts of an AI outbreak in this area would be huge, huge, especially if you have to depopulate.
Well, our agriculture commissioner and his team did a phenomenal job reporting back to our committee, but also isolating and getting on the ground real quick. The procedures they went through with that was just amazing to hear about it, and the contact that was required with everyone in the general vicinity.
We have our Georgia Poultry Lab is phenomenal that we have here in the state. I mean, the turnaround time and what they provide for us, and the data and the communications, and I mean, the live guys get updated when it's coming around and it's traveling. You know where it is every day. I mean, they'll send you an email that's got radar pictures of where the birds are. I mean, it's pretty. They do a phenomenal job. The Georgia Poultry Lab does.
Stephen, thank you for your comments today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good information. Appreciate it. All right, next up we've got Jesse Dillon and I think Trent Thompson are going to be up here together. So, turn it over to you guys for our next
Thank you, Chairman.
testimony.
We're going to give you some of your time back, and we're going to do this as a duet for
All
you
righty.
today.
Good deal.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the committee for the time today. Chairman Workhauser just left, but I was going to thank him for kind of teeing us up perfectly. Our goal today is to represent the Joint Development Authority, that is the 4-county region that came together to work to recruit Hyundai in partnership with the state. Talk a little bit about the partnership, the planning, and the preparation that went into this project, and give you a status update of where we are on some of those water, groundwater wells and surface water. So let me move forward. Project EA was the Hyundai, what we now know as the project that is the Hyundai Motor Group Meta America plant located in Bryan County. This was a project that, while it came together very quickly, once we knew we had an active lead in the form of Hyundai, it was many, many years of preparation and planning and partnership that went together to recruit a project of regional significance. In May of 22, we announced that the project that would land on the Meta site, now formerly the Bryan County site, was going to be the Hyundai Motor Group. This is a significant investment that ultimately is represented in 8,500 new jobs for the region, $7.6 billion of investment. We're very excited to bring all 40 counties together. The JDA started in 2014. So this partnership predates the Hyundai announcement by a significant time. And during that time, we were working together and doing our due diligence to determine how we would best, as a region, address the needs of a major OEM project and a project of regional significance. So you can see there on the map, a drive time map, but you can see the site itself highlighted in blue, and really how it comes together in that apex of all 4 counties represented by Bryan, Bullock, Effingham, and Chatham counties. So while we often highlight how fast this project moved in 2022 from when we originally received their RFI from the KPMG consultants of this project, there was 10 years of work that went into the pre-planning to determine how this site could support this type of project. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Trent Thompson, to talk a little bit more about that management of the resources and the coastal Georgia groundwater management zones, because this was a big part of that planning and preparation. how we would serve a project of regional significance and anticipating the need and the water usage that would go into this type of project. So Trent, I'll cue it over to you and then I'll jump back in.
Great. So yeah, Jesse brought me along to talk about all the nerdy stuff. So Speaker Burns talked earlier about the fact that we live in an area of abundant water resources, and that is very true. I think we, and you'll see it on the next slide, forget how lucky we are to be in an area that has, the Florida Aquifer as an example, which is a vast and pristine source of water. Do a little bit of a history lesson here. Back in the, I guess it was the late 1980s, early 90s, really when the Florida Aquifer kind of got into the forefront of the political arena was issues over in Hilton Head with saltwater intrusion, as you guys may remember. That led to the creation of the Sound Science Initiative, which was a large study and model that was done to try to figure out what was the source of that saltwater intrusion, and look at the specific hydrogeology related to the Beaufort Arc and that saltwater intrusion on Hilton Head. And ultimately, from a Georgia perspective, and this is where EPD came involved, was looking at a long-term management plan. Because again, we want to make sure that resource is there for everybody to enjoy and use in the future. That started in 1997, and that led to reductions over the years, the most recent being in 2025. So again, just a quick snapshot of the aquifer itself. It covers basically about half of Georgia, parts of South Carolina, parts of Alabama, and nearly all of Florida. To kind of put things into perspective, in Georgia, and this information is a little dated, it's USGS 2015 data, but in 2015 we used about 785 million gallons of water out of the Florida aquifer every year. And so, I mean, it's a massive amount of water and a massive resource for agricultural, private use, municipalities, industry, everyone benefits from that supply of water. EPD did an update recently in late 24, I believe it was November, and gave everybody kind of an update of what that management plan was looking like and the benefits of that reduction over the years. The main numbers to pull out of the slide are, since 97, there's been about a 22, I think, million gallon per day reduction in Florida aquifer use in the red zone, which is mostly Chatham, Bryan, Southern Effingham counties. And what you saw is about a 40-foot rebound in that cone of depression in Savannah. So there's been a huge improvement with that management plan and big impacts. Recently, you guys have seen in the news with International Paper, going and changing its business there. There could be even further improvements to that. That's kind of a wait and see. But for right now, the management plan is working, and there has been huge improvements in that cone of depression. Like Jesse said, the plan for getting water out to the mega site was a 10-year plan, and it involved regional partners, and that was the important thing, is to get this done for this large of a project with this much water and sewer infrastructure needs. It took a regional approach. This was sort of the initial water plan that was prepared, and it was, looking at a couple things: speed, getting the resource there to the site in a time, because usually these OEMs come in and they have about a two-year to 3-year window that they want to be operational. So the plan was initially to have water resources up in the green zone, move those groundwater wells as far away from the site as we could into the green zone, away from that cone of depression in Savannah, and then long-term bring surface water up down I-16. That plan has not changed. It's been the same for 10 years. Sewer plans similarly involve sort of a regional partnership. Savannah had existing wastewater treatment plants that were available. We were able to use that same I-16 corridor to bring a wastewater force main down the interstate, provide that initial service to, yes, sir, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's the mega site. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That can be Vanna White.
Yeah, Vanna White. So yes, sir, sorry. That is the mega site. This is the Bullitt County, Bryan County line. This was the original location of the wells, and we'll show you in a minute how that changed. But again, the intent was bringing groundwater down to the site and to the region, and then eventually bring surface water up I-16. Give you directions again. Mega site is here. This is about the airport in Savannah. This is the Crossroads and Travis Field wastewater treatment plant in Savannah. Effingham, Chatham County line here. So the scale of this map kind of can mess you up because it was about, I believe, 8 miles or so, 10 miles to get wastewater down from the mega site. Jesse, I'll let you cover.
Hold on, we're going to pause on the
Yeah,
pretty
sure.
picture for a minute. Like I said, this is a project that came to fruition very quickly, and it was part of what made Georgia so competitive was our ability to move at the speed of business. It's part of what makes Georgia the best state to do business in. And a lot of that had to do with the preparation and planning that was done on behalf of this project in partnership with the state. So Speaker Burns, I want to thank his effort and the governor's office. It was really a collaborative effort to address the needs of an OEM that was moving at such a quick speed. But the reason we were able to accommodate that schedule was because of the work that was done and the engineering and the due diligence that was done up front. So we announced the project in May of 2022. We broke ground officially in October of 2022. And in October of 2024, we reached SOP products coming off the line, cars available for the commercial market for sale. Like I said, while that is an incredibly compressed, tight timeline, that is because of the 10 to 15 years of due diligence and effort that went in advance in that planning and partnerships. So what has that resulted in? Like I said, 8,500 jobs on site. That is Hyundai's Meta plant itself, its affiliate companies, and the joint venture for battery production with LG. And in addition to that, we've seen a significant investment in the supplier network. Over 7,000 additional jobs are represented in the Tier 1, Tier 2 supply network that we've announced in Georgia, and $2.5 billion of investment. So those resources are facilitating opportunities for our communities across Georgia, not just in the 4 counties of the JADA, but in the region, and have resulted in increased partnerships and $10 billion of capital investment in Georgia, 15,000 new job opportunities in the advanced manufacturing space. And we're really proud of how those resources are able to come together to provide those opportunities. I'm going to pass it back, as Trent says, to talk about the engineering, the nerdy speak. But what I want to say is this has really been a catalyst for growth and a catalyst for partnerships. So we're going to, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to let Trent talk a little bit about the state-directed investments that Speaker Burns was so critical in helping us with in this region to expedite that surface water delivery that it's going to be so critical to support our balance with our groundwater withdrawals as well.
So this is the project that's under construction now, the groundwater supply system. And the important thing to point out here, again, let me get everybody oriented. This is the mega site. This is that same Bullock-Bryan County line, the well systems here. The important thing to point out on this, we actually work very closely with Director Cowan and the EPD team on the placement of these wells. We had the good fortune for them to be able to model that with their system, part of that Sound Science Initiative model, and look at it and look specifically at impacts to existing wells in that area, both agricultural and private wells. And what we ended up doing with the design of the system is moving those wells, spacing them out, each well somewhere between 1.5 miles and 3 miles apart. And we also moved them north and west, again, further away from Kona Depression and also further away from existing private wells that were clustered around the Eldora Road corridor. So that was critical in making sure that we minimized the impact of these wells to other adjacent wells in the area. This is all under construction now. Most of it has been completed. The water main down to the mega site has now been completed. The well and elevated tank that you see here on the right is constructed and in operation, has been in operation for a while now. And what we are nearing completion on is the groundwater wells themselves. In the green zone. Right now, Hyundai is supplied by yellow zone wells in Bryan County. And the schedule of that, just kind of where we are today, one of the big things with the permit was the implementation of a well mitigation program. We call it the Brian Bullock Groundwater Sustainability Program, or the GSP. That is now fully active and funded. We've got on-call well drillers that are there, and the purpose of those well drillers is that if someone has an issue with one of their wells, they can respond rapidly, get out there, see what the issue is, and repair that issue immediately. And both Bullock and Bryan have those well drillers on call. As far as schedule of completion, well number 1, which is that easternmost well, it's scheduled to come online any day now. We're kind of finishing up the finishing touches, getting all the control systems ready to go, and then that will go into operation. Later this year, well number 2, which is kind of that centrally located well near I-16 and 119, will come online. And then late in Q1 of 26, wells 3 and 4 will come on, which are the westernmost. Part of that effort with EPD and that permitting was to look at those local impacts, not just regional, but local impacts. And this graphic represents the modeling that EPD did to figure out what that impact would be. And this represents all 4 wells pumping at permit capacity, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this represents sort of, I'm going to use the term potentiometric surface, but basically what that pressure inside the wells and the aquifers would be, how high the water level raises up into the wells. And what that modeling effort showed, which was very conservative, showed that we had a centroid of kind of that cone of depression near the I-16, 119 interchange, and we had a 10-foot drawdown out as far as 5 miles. So that 5-mile radius is that was what delineated that groundwater sustainability program or well mitigation program, is that we wanted to make sure we took care of any wells inside that area that could potentially have issues. This is kind of a cross-section, somewhat of a cartoon representation of wells, typical wells in the area, and what that aquifer cross-section looks like. So you've got the land surface here, you've got about a 300-foot thick aquitard or confining layer, and then you've got the aquifer down below it, anywhere between 400 to 770 feet below ground surface. So it is very deep. That confining layer is what separates sort of surface water, rivers, streams, creeks, any shallow wells from that pristine Floridan aquifer that's down below that confining layer. When I say that potentiometric surface, what I'm talking about is where the water level goes up into the well once it's drilled from that aquifer that's under pressure. So
Quick question. I'm
Yes,
sorry. So you said that the site is currently being provided water from wells closer to the site.
Yes, sir, correct.
And we're currently building the system that's going to bring in water from outside, which is, I guess, is going to lessen the demand on but the current wells close to the site right now is meeting the water demand?
So, yes, sir, right now, so it goes back to that phased approach, right? What we were trying to do is stay ahead of Hyundai's demands for water. So right now we have.
Okay, so the plant is not fully operational.
The plant is not fully operational.
Gotcha.
That is correct.
So we're phasing in water as they're phasing in sections.
Absolutely correct. So the yellow zone wells were intended to meet the demands of what Hyundai referred to as their startup and kind of commissioning phase, right?
Okay.
Getting ready, getting folks in, get them trained, have some initial cars rolling off the lot. The intent of these wells are to meet that next level when they're looking at 300,000 cars a year up to 500,000 cars a year.
And if I'm getting ahead of you, I apologize.
Yeah,
but
no problem.
The surface water that's coming up I-16, what is the source of that water?
So the source of that water is the Savannah River.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll get into that. I'll get a little bit more into that in a few slides, but yes, sir, that is the plan. So correct, and so think about it as of kind of staying ahead of Hyundai and replacing things, right? So we've got those yellow zone wells that were meeting those initial demands, those lower level early demands. That water will get replaced with these green zone wells that are further from that Savannah cone of depression, and they will replace that yellow zone usage, and then will be ultimately replaced by the surface water. So again, doing this in a phased approach, methodically staying ahead of those demands with. Correct. No, they will. So we won't terminate use of the wells, but the day-to-day usage will go down. So for instance, these wells will stay there. They may only come online in the event of a fire or something like that. The green zone wells are permitted right now at about 6.625 million gallons a day. Hyundai's water usage is long-term about 4 million gallons a day. So the intent is for that surface water to replace that 4 million gallons a day, and then hopefully the remainder of this water can be used by residential and other uses in the region.
And who's going to be considered the owner of this well system?
So right now, this well system is co-owned by Bryan and Bullock County. Bullock County owns sort of the western portion of the supply system. Bryan owns the eastern 2 wells, and then all of this internal water system to Bryan is owned and operated by Bryan County.
So they could also utilize that structure for further economic development in the area. Once the demand on the wells come down, they can produce that water for
Absolutely, and that is the intent. This is intended to be a regional water source for everybody. Yes, absolutely. So again, back to this slide. Sorry, got a frog in my throat. So when and this will come into this will become important in a minute. That potentiometric surface, that blue line you see is sort of pre-pumping of the wells. The red line would be the projected model reduction of what that level would go to with pumping. That was estimated to be around 10 to 15 feet. During the construction of, so this now comes the good news. So during the construction of these wells, we've had to test those and do what's called a 24-hour drawdown test. And those 24-hour drawdown tests, what we're actually doing is pumping those wells at 150% of the design capacity. So design capacity and what the permanent wells will be are 1,800 gallons a minute. We tested it at 2,700 gallons per minute at each well, looked at it for 24 hours, and what we're trying to see there is, one, what the capacity is of the well, what the ability for it to produce water is, but also we're looking at that change in that potentiometric surface, right, or how high the water is in adjacent wells. And this is sort of that localized cone of depression, that blue curve you see. We're also looking at other also for other engineering nerdy numbers like specific conductivity, which is kind of giving us an idea of how robust and prolific the well is. Thank you. So these are results. These are the results of the 4 wells. I won't read all these numbers to you. The important thing is, again, what that drawdown was. So what we saw, again, the EPD more conservative model indicated that we were going to see somewhere around about a 15 to 19 foot drawdown at the wells, and then as much as a 10-foot drawdown 5 miles away. What we saw during the test is actually we were looking at 10 and 12 foot of drawdown at the deepest point at the well itself, with the exception of well number 2. It had a 23-foot drawdown. And then when we look at the rebound, the recovery time, again, these are very good numbers, and what we saw there is when the wells cut off, how long did that take for that potentiometric surface to return to normal? And it basically ranged between about 3 to 8 hours on those wells 1, 3, and 4. And well number 2, which was the unique one, had a 45-minute recovery time, and that all gets back to that specific conductivity number. Basically what you had there is instead of a wide, shallow cone of depression, that well, because of the transmissivity in the aquifer, had a very narrow and deep cone of depression. So pulled water from down deep, but didn't really impact outside of its area of influence very far. Yeah.
I just keep interrupting you.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
So this cone of depression, is it in place while pumping? Because you just gave us a restoration period. So, for instance, the 45-minute one, once 45 minutes is done, is back to where there's no cone?
Correct, yeah. So every well, the way to think about it is every well, big or small, creates its own little cone of depression. And that happens while the well is active. So when you're pumping, essentially, you know, that pulling of water down creates that little cone of depression, right? And while they're active, it's there, and when that pumping stops, it will go back up. Now, in like Savannah, where you've got hundreds and hundreds of wells, some wells always pumping all the time, right? So in that case, you've got kind of a really dense area of multiple wells running. You've got kind of a static cone of depression. It's always there. But here with these wells, and because they're spread out like they are, you're going to get that cone of depression, and then when wells stop operating, it'll rebound right back. The other important number that we did here was we actually installed a monitoring well near well number 4, because what we want to do is, again, see what that cone of depression looked like away from the well. What was that reduction? And so with well number 4 running, again, at 150% of its design capacity, what we had was a 10-foot drawdown in the main well itself, and then a 4.4-foot drawdown in a well 180 feet away. So again, going back to EPD's more conservative model, you know, they were looking at all the wells operating. It's not exactly apples to apples, but this is a good indication. The model showed a 10-foot drawdown 5 miles away. Reality, we saw a 4-foot drawdown 180 feet away. So again, very good indications that these wells are going to have minimal impact to adjacent wells. Again, this wasn't done with all the wells running at the same time, but this was done with each well pumping basically double what it would need to. So again, a good indication of what this impact will be. Yes, status update on sewer. So one of the other things that we wanted to share with everybody is where we are on sewer. Again, this phased approach to bringing Hyundai online. We were able to benefit from that regional partnership with Savannah and their existing treatment plants. The treatment plant that you guys will visit later today is active, it's operational. We're actually treating wastewater now from Hyundai. The industrial pretreatment systems inside of Hyundai are operational, so the water is being treated on site, actually twice, before it ever leaves Hyundai site. Then it goes to Bryan County's wastewater treatment facility, which is in its startup and commissioning phase. We're trying to get the bugs and the biologicals growing so that we can reach full treatment. And so it's getting another level of treatment there, and then it travels down this force main to I-16, connects the Savannah system, gets final treatment at Travis Field before it's discharged into the Savannah River. Basically, by the end of this year, the plant will be fully operational, and we'll convert that to a discharge to the Ageechee as well as reclaimed water uses. Yeah, go ahead.
Will you go back one slide? So one of the going back to the partnership model and why this is so important, what Trent was saying, when the plant in Bryan County comes online, what that will do is offer capacity to Western Chatham County, because that was always part of the intention. Was, I think it's pump station, you know, on their 193.
Yeah.
From that point going west, you open up capacity for wastewater treatment from Western Chatham to go directly into Bryan County, which ultimately also opens up capacity at Travis Field on Eastern Chatham County. So you have partnerships across all three of those counties. It's opening up regional opportunities outside of the Hyundai plant itself.
Yeah, no, excellent. And so again, kind of a preview of what everyone will see this afternoon. This is the Bryan County Regional Facility that we'll be visiting later and doing the tour of. Like I said, it is now complete. It's operational. We're in the startup phase. It is a 5 million gallon per day facility. It's expandable up to 10. Like Jesse said, the intent all along was for it to be regional. We've got existing agreements in place between Bullock and Bryan, Effingham and Bryan, and Savannah and Bryan for those individual municipalities to send wastewater back to this regional facility. And like I mentioned earlier, basically set to come fully online in January and start discharging water. But the other reason I put this slide on here, and the kind of the critical thing is, this needs to be considered as another source of water. Bryan County, and with the funding that we were able to get from the state, chose to go with a very advanced level of treatment. This is what's called a or a membrane bioreactor facility, an MBR. It achieves a very high level of treatment. Trip Tolson, Jesse's colleague over at CETA, would always ask me to tell people what that means, like what level of treatment are you reaching? And I would talk about microns and milligrams per liter of reduction, but I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. This is a photo from the membrane bioreactors manufacturer, kind of a representative photo of the before and after. You're reaching almost drinking water levels of treatment, basically another round of polish and disinfection, and you can actually put this out for drinking water. So it is a reclaim facility in every intent of the word. Hyundai and HLGA are using about 1 million gallons of this facility once it comes online for irrigation on the site. It can be used for other things, cooling tower water. Data centers are a big thing in the media right now. This could be used to cool data centers as well. So, this kind of facility and more of them in the future do need to be considered part of that overall water conservation plan. And again, a lot of forethought went into making this that type of facility, and potentially 5 million gallons a day being provided for other uses outside of just discharging back to the Ageechee. Now, so that was all the groundwater side of things. Now the surface water. So again, that third phase of sort of water supply to not just Hyundai, but to the region. Speaker Burns mentioned it earlier. There was a large investment that was put forward by the state of Georgia. The infrastructure I showed in the previous slides, that accounted for about $360 million worth of water sewer infrastructure. And again, not just for Hyundai, but for that entire region. This is about a $500 million project is what we're going to talk about next. And again, the intent here is sort of providing that 6 million gallons per day of usage for kind of groundwater replacement and subsidy, again, providing that sustainable and redundant system. A couple of things that we're trying to get out of that. We want to reduce that draft permit for the groundwater from 25 years down to 15 years. We also want to look at the next 15 years of growth and development in that region and finding a long-term sustainable supply of water for that, which again in this case is surface water. This is a map of that system. So what you've got right now is a surface water intake that Savannah has on Abercorn Creek, up in Effingham County, and then Savannah's water treatment plant's actually in Port Wentworth on Highway 21, several miles south. That's an existing system that supplies a lot of water to Chatham County municipalities within Chatham County and City of Savannah. Savannah also provides water up to Effingham County along this route to Effingham County Power and some other uses inside of Effingham. What this project does is puts money towards Savannah's improved facility, let them pull more water out of the Savannah, treat more water at their treatment plant, but also build a second facility further upstream. And that is a critical part of this being a sustainable project. As we continue to deepen the harbor, it's kind of forcing salt water up, brackish water further upstream in the Savannah River. That led to an impoundment project being built so that Savannah made sure that its surface water intake was sustainable. Well, this moves that much further north and has another resource and another intake in the Savannah River in further north in fresher water. And now you've got 2 intakes and 2 treatment plants. Yep, absolute redundancy and sustainability. We broke this project up into 3 phases as well, we'll get into in a second, but essentially treatment plant here in Effingham County and then a surface water line back to Hyundai with interconnects along the way back into Effingham County and Chatham County, again providing that secondary source of water. Overall time scale, so we were looking for, again, speed to market, kind of quickly addressing the water use needs. So with that ability for us to use water that's already being produced by Savannah, sending that to Effingham County, we're trying to get that initial piece of water down to Bryan County through that surface water line along I-16. That'll happen in the first 5 years, and then in 2030 and beyond, we'll have the treatment plant in Effingham County completed with up to 12 million gallons per day of supply capacity initially, expandable to 24. So again, kind of phasing this out, again, we've got this existing supply system here now. Phase 1 is going to be constructing this transmission line through Effingham County, following power line easements, again, utilizing an existing infrastructure corridor, and then along I-16 for the remainder of the route, again, utilizing existing infrastructure and existing corridors. The intent is to have that 8 million gallons a day of water into this transmission line and into the ability of Bullock and Bryan to use that water within the first 5 years. And then phase 2 would be the construction of the raw water intake and the treatment plant in Effingham County, as well as the raw water main. Do we duplicate slides? Oh, sorry. So again, it's about a $501 million investment split between the municipalities of Effingham County, City of Savannah, Bryan County. Each of them are doing their part and doing this in segments so that, again, it can be done very quickly. And each of these municipalities are already well along the way. Effingham's already got, I believe, a CMAR, construction manager at risk, working on that transmission line. Bryan has worked on its design of its transmission main. The plan is to have it constructed by the end of 2026. And then Savannah is in the process of upgrading its raw water intake and pumping facilities. So all that is underway, and all this is planned to be completed by the end of 2030. Again, the big objectives here, supply that long-term sustainable surface water supply, redundancy to the region. This surface water supply system is going to not just provide water to Hyundai, to Bryan County, but also provide an additional source back into Chatham County and into Effingham County. 2 treatment plants, essentially a large transmission main loop that will connect the 2 systems together, providing that long-term water supply source that we're all looking for, and it'll really help the region continue to grow. And with that, we'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you. One of our goals of the committee is to look at capacity and planning, and I know there's some concerns, I've heard concerns about, you know, the water usage, but it appears that the planning and capacity issues, y'all are addressing those from what can you comment on that at all, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that has been a big concern, and you know, again, I think, which is why Jesse brought it up a few times, is, you know, going back almost 15 years, we knew that this was not going to be a one solution. It was going to fix everything. We knew this was going to be had to be done in stages, looking at multiple water supply sources, looking at multiple options for how we handle wastewater, and the only way to really do that was do it regionally. And we've had great partnership between the 4 counties and those local municipalities to get this done. Again, utilizing the resources that are available, and do it in a time frame that would also work with the manufacturer, because ultimately we had to attract them to come to the site. So, but yeah, ultimately what we're looking at is we've got that 6.625 million gallon per day green zone permit that's going to provide that initial need to the region and to Hyundai. That'll get replaced with 8 million gallons a day initially from the surface water supply system, and then ultimately we'll have that 12 million gallons per day new facility built in Effingham. So again, a staged approach to really address that, again, not just for Hyundai, but the entire region.
And I'll just add on to that what Trent said. It's important to recognize that Hyundai, the project of regional significance that is Hyundai, was the catalyst that allowed us to execute these regional plans that have been contemplated for a long time. It was always part of the plan to bring surface water to support industry in Western Chatham County and Bryan County and that sort of regional capacity. But what Speaker Burns has walked back in the room, what the Speaker has been able to do with us in support of the state legislative direct investment and low interest loans through GFA has been critical to expediting that timeline. So thank you, Speaker Burns, for your support. Thank you, Jeff Cohn, for your support with EPD. It's been a partnership at every level, and so that I think it's important to recognize. This is a harder story to tell, and as you can see by why I have to bring Trent in to give this explanation and really get into the schematics of it, this is a hard story to tell, and you have to keep telling it. So we're grateful for the opportunity today to present to this committee, because this is such a critical and important story to really understand in its partnership.
Thank you. Representative Reese.
Yes, can you go back to the surface water slide? I just wanted you again, if you touch it, you said you're going to have 3 places that you're pulling surface water out of the river?
Yeah, so, yeah, sorry for that confusion. So I think it's, we'll use the term the raw water intake facilities and then the treatment facilities. So the raw water intakes are going to be along the river. So there's 2, an existing one Savannah has at Abercorn Creek, and then a new one that's going to go near Plant McIntosh further up into Effingham County. Okay. So 2 intake facilities. The treatment facilities, again, one existing near Port Wentworth that's operated by Savannah, and then a new one that will be operated by Effingham off of McCall Road near the Effingham County Power.
So at full capacity, the one that is going to be placed near the plant, what type of impact is that going to have on river flow once it's operational below that?
So great question that I don't know that I'm really the expert to speak on that. That is something that's being studied right now, actually by EPD and City of Savannah's team and Effingham's team that are looking at that. Obviously, that'll be part of the permit process to make sure that there is not a significant impact.
Right, I'm sure it's not going to be anything crazy, but as we're considering, larger ships coming up the river, any small variation could have an impact on that. As we also discussed what to do with the bridge, whether to raise it or build a tunnel, but that's a conversation we're going to have as well. Saltwater infiltration with your aquifer closer to the coastal areas. Are you guys seeing any issues with that down here?
So, I mean, again, all of that saltwater intrusion, so I can go back to that. Yeah, it's way back to the beginning. So, and I think this is one of the things that confuse people. Actually, this is the slide I like to talk about it from. People get confused when they see this red zone and yellow zone. They think that means we're starting to see saltwater intrusion here. It's already hitting us. This is in a danger zone. This is in almost a danger zone. These are fine. The red, green, and yellow was really a color system that EPD put together to say no pumping, no increases. We're going to start slowing pumping down, and then pumping can continue. So all the saltwater intrusion that's happening is on Hilton Head. We're not seeing any saltwater intrusion in Chatham County or in Georgia at all. It's all in Hilton Head. And again, it's actually due to there's kind of a unique hydrogeologic condition there. It's called the Buford Arch. It's where you've got that confining layer I showed in one of those previous exhibits. In Hilton Head, it's very thin. So the top of the Floridan aquifer is very close to the surface.
Yeah.
So what you're getting there is, again, that's kind of a place where salt water is able to come up and come from the ocean into the aquifer. And again, that's caused because that how pressurized the aquifer is gets reduced with increased pumping, and because that's an area of thin or closeness of the aquifer to surface water, it's where that salt water is coming in.
Well, that's great to hear, because desalinization can be very expensive.
Yes.
And my last question, when you talked about the models with the wells, of course, it's exciting to see that we're outperforming the models. But my question would be, how did the models get it so wrong? Because we depend on that information, sometimes to even determine if projects are going to move forward. And I mean, you guys are beating the models like crazy, and I'm happy to hear that. But it seems like we need to be more reliable on that aspect. Have we discussed how we dropped the ball there?
Well, so a couple of things, and this actually came up in a recent coastal water planning session, and Dr. Wei Zhang, who leads that water effort for EPD, addressed that as well. So I think there's a couple of important things. One, what we talked about today and that model are not exactly apples to apples. That model was looking at all 4 wells pumping at full capacity 24/7, I think for like a 10-year period. So it was a very conservative model. EPD used that for policy and planning related to the permit. And again, I think from a perspective of the intent of that model, which is to set policy for permit management, its intent is to be very conservative. What we're looking at is more localized impact, real world impact with that testing. And again, it's conservative as well. Again, we're doing it as 150% times, but that was not all 4 wells running at the same time. I think it's a great indicator that the impacts aren't going to be as much as we feared. But again, really kind of 2 different uses. One that's very conservative, looking big picture regionally to make sure there's no impacts and make sure that that permit is as good and resilient as it can be to protecting that resource. And yes, there is a discrepancy there, but in a way, I would consider that a good job on EPD's part of having something that was conservative, and reality is a lot better, right? It's better to be that way than the other way around. And I don't know if there's plans to update any models with this new testing. I don't know if Director Cohen wants to speak to that or not. There you go. So it's constantly being updated. So exactly. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? All right, that was really good information for the committee to see. Pretty impressive information. The planning capacity factors, pretty impressive. So thank you all for y'all's testimony.
Great.
Thank you.
And I just want to add one last thing. There is a Truth About Water website that our JDA puts on that puts all of this material online. So if you have any questions, you can always refer to that. It has all these presentations and data so that anybody can answer those questions for themselves. Thank you.
Okay. Just a quick update on time. Hunter Hill is next. Hummer, he's our last presenter. We need to kind of finish up by 12:30 so we can get lunch and depart by 1:15 for the site visit. And as a reminder, everyone in the room is, invited for lunch. And looks like this is all set up in the back there. So we'll get through Mr. Hill. We have one person on public comment, and then we'll call it a day. So that's where we are. Hunter, it's all yours.
Well, hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. Go Army, beat Navy.
Beat Navy.
This is the most distinguished committee I've ever spoken to. I think everybody on the committee is a chairman. Well, Representative, you have great questions, so that's something to be said for that. But Trent did such a great job speaking to the big project that I wanted to address as well. But I did want to take a point of personal privilege, being the only person to address the committee today that's a member of the executive branch. And I think it's really special that we have this opportunity, and I think we need to go back and remember our great governor has made a lot of great decisions in his tenure in office. But none has been more impactful than his courageous decision to keep the economy open during COVID. Not only great for the small businesses around the state to continue to do their make their products and sell their services, but it created revenues for the state. And this project that we have been talking about today wouldn't be possible to have paid for it in cash the way that both the legislature and the governor has put forth, but not for that strategic decision. And so I just think that's important to highlight, and I'm incredibly proud to be on the team for the administration implementing federal and state policy on energy and water. And so that's what we're going to talk about water today, but this committee, and that's why I want to commend Speaker Burns for putting it forth, all these decisions that the governor's made and all of our wins that y'all deserve credit for as well, of course, on economic development is putting a strain on our energy and water resources. And so the need for this committee and the need for your leadership, Mr. Chairman, and everyone that's taking time here is vital, because the executive branch runs most of this stuff, but we need some more advice because sometimes, I think we spoke about it last night, we move forward on deals and we need to bring water and energy to the forefront as early as possible in the conversations so that we don't have misses and we calculate new jobs coming in, but they actually cost more to serve than we thought initially. So really proud to be here and proud to be on the team. This is going to be brief too, because like I said, Trent covered most of our stuff. But I want you all to know, as committee members, if you don't already, the mission of GFA is to conserve and improve Georgia's energy, land, and water resources. And so that's what our team thinks about and works on every day. Most of y'all know us as the infrastructure bank for the state of Georgia for your communities on water and sewer infrastructure and also landfills. GFA has provided more than $6 billion in low-interest loans and has funded more than 2,100 projects statewide. And we work with all of the counties and cities that create or bring water and put it back into the environment in a healthy way. We have three main funds for water. We have the Georgia Fund, which y'all fund. It's all state funds. And then we have the Clean Water SRF and the Drinking Water SRF, which is usually just mathematically about an 80-20 mix, 80% federal funded with a 20% state match. And that's how we're capitalized. And after we get that capital, we lend it out, and then the communities pay us back, of course, and with a little bit of interest, and we then revolve that money back out for future loans. And and we're self-sustaining. We operate like a business. We charge our communities a small fee, just like a bank would, for implementing the funds. And that's how we run ourselves. Key point here is y'all have been very generous to us over the last couple of years, and the federal funds have been very robust over the last couple of years. But the demand has been so significant that we had to make some changes internally and really make sure we're prioritizing communities that don't have access to private capital markets. So the larger a community is, whether it's Chatham County, Savannah, Atlanta, Muskogee County, our bigger communities in the state, they can go get a bond to do major projects. And so we've had to say yes to those communities a little less, so that we protect the resources for smaller communities around the state and prioritize them. And this is the way that we do that. We have a lot of criteria to determine how disadvantaged a community is. And a key one is number 11. We've updated it for the amount of connections that a system has. And the higher your score, the more disadvantaged you are, and therefore we prioritize giving money to those communities, and we also do so with lower interest rates. So in that way, somewhat the opposite of how a bank would work. But it's important for y'all to know that that's how we think about it. And the main project, again, that Trent covered is, the $502 million investment on the coast. And Representative Reese had such great questions about what is the catalyst behind it. Of course, we did the studies and found that we could do groundwater, but over time that was not going to be sustainable. And so it catalyzed this project that y'all have funded that is going to be regionally transformative over the next 50 to 100 years to allow growth to continue while being environmentally sustainable. And so those are the breakdowns for how each county will receive, how each community will receive the money. I think it's important too, water is so decentralized. Y'all have many communities, and you have as many communities as you have a new water system there, or a water system. And it's rare for communities to work together so closely. So I just want to, tip my cap to Effingham and Savannah and Bryan for their work together. Rick Dunn, who's been leading this project for a while, both as EPD director and now as the OPB director, the initial proposal was for them to set up like an authority to manage this, but they decided to work through it without doing that, and I think that's lends a lot of credibility to them. But we at GFA, who were thinking statewide, and we're thinking in conjunction with Director Cowan on, the watersheds. The watersheds don't really know about our county lines. They just flow. And so we want to think about water use and be a good steward, statewide, and not just be thinking about this county or this city, et cetera. And we do that by also offering interest rate deductions for projects of regional significance. In other words, we want to incentivize communities to work together and not just be thinking in a decentralized, localized way. So again, we've talked about all this. I was just going to show the picture of the intake, but we've already discussed all this. We're late to the game, GFA. We're just implementing it. The leaders that pulled this together were Jesse and Trent and Director Cowan and Rick Dunn. But now that we have the money, we're going to make sure that it's used appropriately and that we're good stewards of it. And so we work very closely with all of the different entities involved in making this happen. And the final slide I wanted to, and happy to answer any questions about that, but I wanted to tell you all about Helene funding that's come through because of the disaster that Helene was. And we got some good news from the federal government. We had $125 million for clean water, excuse me, $359 million for drinking water, and $9 million for decentralized systems, which are like septic systems. And I just want y'all to be aware of it as leaders in the state and for your communities, that money's available. We've already done a call for projects so that communities can say, hey, we would like access to this money. And these are the ways that you can justify getting the money. And it's very important because we're going to have more wind events and more flooding events in the state. And if communities can upgrade their systems with these resources, we would highly encourage them to do so. And we can share those with you after this. So that's really it. Happy to answer any questions specifically about the project, but Jesse and Trent did such a good job with that. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for inviting me. And if y'all want to be in touch with us, that's how you do it.
Thank you for comments here and testimony. Any questions from the committee? I recognize Chairman Brad Thomas. Didn't know you were here today. Welcome back. Good seeing you. Any questions from the committee? Hunter, thanks for your many years of service in the Senate and also Chief testimony.
Appreciate it.
Good information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You have to turn on my microphone there. Sorry about that. All right, we have one person for public comment, and that's Mr. Mike Vacwer. Vacwer. So you're the only thing between us and lunch, so
I understand that.
No pressure.
I will try to be brief because I'm standing between you and delicious Claxton chicken.
yes, we would appreciate that. So floor is all yours, Mr. Mike. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Mike Vacwer, and there are two of us in the room who have been involved in the ebb and flow of water policy on the coast. It's Jerry Essery and myself. I've actually been intimately involved in water policy since my days at Fort Howard when that plant was being built, moving over to Union Camp and International Paper, and then representing a wide variety of governmental clients, including the City of Savannah Water Department, Effingham County, Garden City, Port Wentworth. But today I'm here representing Water Utility Management, which is the largest private water system in the state, and the Home Builders Association of Greater Savannah, which builds homes in Chatham, Bryan, Effingham, and Liberty. Basically, the footprint of where most of the impacts are being felt by the rapid growth and industrialization from Hyundai and the related spinoff and support facilities. As has been alluded, you're looking at somewhere around 20,000 new jobs that are being created, and a necessity, therefore, for about 30,000 homes to be built over the next 5 years. That sounds like a daunting task and goal to achieve, and it is. And when you back up and look at the constraining factor, other than ever increasing cost of land, you very quickly realize that you can't develop residential properties without access to water. Water does not follow development. Development follows water. And so we have been constrained for a number of years because of the impacts of the Coastal Groundwater Management Study, again, that we were all involved in. I was in the paper industry at that time. We provided a substantial amount of money to fund the Sound Science Initiative so that we would understand better what was going on. We thought it was going to cost $4 million, which the paper companies provided along the coast, but it actually cost $12 million and took, 5 years to put together. But that led to an aggressive water management moratorium and reductions, the latest 17%, I believe, reduction that we saw in January of this year. So that brings us to where we are today. But today we are at an inflection point. We have had a significant investment of money from the state to build new water resources, new surface water resources that ultimately will provide basically an additional 50 million gallons a day in surface water capacity. Savannah is increasing their plant by about 8, and then I think they're going to about 90 million gallons ultimately in the future. The Effingham facility is pegged at about 12 million gallons per day with the capability to increase to another 12 million gallons in the future. So I think with that, we have solved one part of the equation. But I will quickly point out that if you look at those maps, that water is connected to pipes that are connected to the water sources and to the treatment plants themselves. Hard pipes that, yes, you can connect to. We are at an inflection point here on water policy, we think, in that within the past 30 days, International Paper announced the closure of the Savannah River Mill and the plant in Riceboro, Georgia. Both of those plants were very large users of groundwater. The Riceboro plant, 11.1 million gallons per day of groundwater, located in western Liberty County, almost with the stone's throw from I-95, basically the western reaches of Liberty County, 48 miles from Savannah, and ceasing using 12.157 million gallons a day from the Savannah River Mill, basically adjacent to downtown Savannah. So you have now 2 pots of water availability that you are looking at. You have a known increase from what is the surface water treatment facilities and the pipeline grid that will extend through Effingham County and into southern Bryan County, which is designed to serve a number of needs in Effingham and the industrial needs at Hyundai, and some of the needs in about 12,000 acres of the southern part of northern Bryan County. But you have no way to really service the other 78,000 acres that are the rest of northern Bryan County going up into Pembroke. Likewise, you have a situation in Liberty where they are at capacity. They're having to bring water in from another county. When you look at Pembroke, in the northern reaches of Bryan County, they are fortunate in that they were able to drill a well across 119, and I believe it's in Bullock County, that brings water to them to allow them to develop. The point is that the surface water plant meets a need and is a phenomenal investment, and lines can be run off of that. But that does nothing to solve the needs of those areas that can't build a 16 or 25 mile line to connect to those water resources.
Mother's trying to wrap it up.
Yeah, I will. I'm at the end. We're at the point now where we probably have an opportunity to step back and look at the water management policy and understand not how the surface water should be managed, that's under control, but what should the state do with that additional 23 million gallons of Florida aquifer water that is no longer going to be used. We know for a fact that with the closure of IP and that 12 million gallons a day not being pumped, within 3 weeks, the level of the aquifer has already risen 2 feet. So what we are suggesting is that we take a step back and look at not using all of that water that's no longer being used, but look at how a portion of that water could perhaps be allocated for residential use, residential consumption by water systems that are at capacity, by cities and counties that are capacity, to allow residential construction to take place in those areas to help service and to help build those 30,000 homes that are going to be necessary. And so that is the point that I'm here today to make, and ask that, again, we step back and look at what that existing coastal groundwater management policy is today and how it changed on, I believe, September 22nd, when International Paper announced that they were shutting down and were no longer going to be using 23 million gallons a day of groundwater. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Cool. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any closing comments from the committee before we get out of here? You need to get lunch. All right, committee adjourned.